Hey, Dad.
Hey Matt, how are you?
I'm well. How are you?
I am excellent, thank you.
And welcome to our listening audience, family, and friends. Thank you so much for tuning in. This is Discussions with Dad, Faith, Blood, and the In Between. And are you famous yet?
No, I'm infamous. I'm infamous.
You're infamous.
I'm infamous.
Did you
But
have a lot of Did you have a lot of feedback from your community, your friends, your pod?
I did, and it was all
Yeah,
good. It was all good. Yeah,
that's yeah.
I told you about
Likewise.
my men's group. They loved it.
What did they love specifically? Did they give detail?
Well, the one guy that really he's about your age, and he loves podcasts. He goes, "You're doing what?" And I told him we're doing a podcast. Then he watched parts of it. I guess he didn't watch it all. And he just said that that's so needed. He says it's just so needed, really, which I took as a compliment because, you know, it's so needed, right?
Yeah, I agree with you. It's interesting. I also received mostly positive, almost glowing feedback from a huge cross section of my community. And then, there was some, not pushback, but I definitely faced a few friends and cohorts, people from my graduate program who, were like, I think you could have challenged your dad more. Uh, and to be fair, yes, we could challenge each other a lot more, right? And we could
Yeah.
argue the fact more. But I think, and that's what this episode is going to I'm going to try and focus around that for us so that we can kind of really start to get to the root of, I think, why we are where we are in this country. And I think you would agree.
Probably so. Yeah,
Yeah.
let's hear it.
So yeah, so before we do that, I just want to remind ourselves first and foremost, but also our listening audience of our core promises, the three promises that you and I agreed to prior to doing this podcast and part of our why. So of course, the first one is even when we disagree, we will practice patience and love over certainty. And we'll get into this a little bit into the episode, but that was a hard one for you and me this week. I struggled with that a little bit when we had our private conversations offline. And then our second core promise is we will tell the truth with care, which I think you and I try to do always. And our third is we will listen to understand, not convince, convert, or prove wrong. And that's the
That's hard
hardest
for
for me.
both
How
of
about you?
us. That's hard for both
Yeah.
of us. Yeah, I mean, and that's
Yeah.
kind of our personalities involved in that.
Well, and that's a big part of today's podcast theme is what shaped us and who shaped us and how we were shaped. And, when you and I agreed to do this podcast and I put forth a full arc of where I wanted to go and the questions I kind of wanted to ask you, and we both agreed upon this, I think we keep going back to trying to understand and be open to things that maybe we don't agree with or maybe we see completely differently, but we want to leave space for in my why I think the United States of America is a shiny beacon of hope for so many people still trying to break into this country. Let's not forget this whole immigration thing that's happening is because people want to be here. So what is it about here that we have that they want that people here in from a lot of different perspectives maybe don't really either they're taking it for granted or they're not. I don't know. Do you see where I'm going with that?
Yeah, the fact that we're doing this is one of the reasons why we're here. We have the freedom to have this podcast, and before it was a podcast, it was freedom of speech. But we can engage like this. There's a lot of countries we couldn't do this openly,
Right.
and there's a lot of countries that don't have the wherewithal or the means to do something like this if we were living there. Yeah, there's a million reasons why to be happy and thankful that we're here, and yeah, I agree with you. I do.
Yeah. And of course, all of these conversations that we have together, these are our personal opinions and our from our lived experiences and from our perspective. And so of course we encourage our listeners to seek guidance if they disagree with us. And that's the other thing. Who who is seeking outside counsel and from where? Because I think, and that goes back to community. I think if you don't have a core community of people that maybe don't think exactly like you, I think that's also a way that we fall into tropes and tribes that, rather than trying to come together as a council, we divide like football teams. And we kind of brought
Sure.
that up last
Sure.
episode.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, so obviously we tabled something in the last episode, and it surrounding the kind of ongoing situation that has of course further escalated in Minneapolis. And to stay true to our core promises, and also to remind ourselves and our listening audience, neither one of us wants to go back and forth, because I know where you stand on this and you know where I stand on this. But we
Right.
want to get to more of the root of why I feel the way I feel and you feel the way you feel. Agree? Or
Right. Sure.
and and so briefly, with now the death of Alex Preddy, which is, we both agree, sad and
Very
horrible.
terrible. Very terrible.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And yet I know you still are pro Trump going after illegal immigration.
I am. I am. I'm pro. I'm pro ICE as far as doing their job. Now, having said that, like we discussed, if there's something that they've done wrong, they need to be held accountable for. I don't have a problem with that. And part of the whole thing is why we tabled it. And again, we're not trying to skirt around this issue, but there's so many facts that we don't know, and I don't want to pretend like I do know those facts and say things that, just because I say it don't mean it's true, and just because you say it don't mean it's
Right.
true. Well, definitely on the internet right now, there's a million things being said by a million different people. And me and you discussed this in length this week. How do we even know? And it's going to get worse. My generation, and I was thinking about this today, my generation had three news channels: CBS, NBC, and ABC. That's it. That's all we had. And when something happened in Selma, Alabama, when it was so bad in Selma, or Kent State, which I remember both of them, when those things happened, I came home at night, or in Vietnam, I came home at night and I watched the news, and I believed what Walter Cronkite said. I believed what he said, and I believed what those people said. I didn't have any other way of finding out about it. We didn't have camera phones that someone could text me or send me a picture of, or immediately we found out about it. We didn't have anything. At the very best, we had someone maybe was at the place and called or wrote a letter and said, "Hey, I was there and this is what happened." And again, that's his perspective of what happened, which 10,000 people will have 10,000 different perspectives. So yeah, I think it's hard. My core beliefs are my core beliefs. I think it's right to have closed borders. I think it's right for us to deport bad people from our country and stuff like that. But having said that, we have to things play out to see what is the truth of the matter. And maybe sometimes we won't get to the truth. But your generation has a bigger challenge, and we've talked about that too. Not only do you have instant access to what happens, instant access because it's on a cell phone, it gets posted immediately. Not only do you have that,
Right.
but now AI came into the story, and God knows what we're going to be looking at 6 months from now. 6 months from now, they could have me standing there with a gun in my hand, pointing it at somebody, and you won't know if it's me or not me. I think it's going to get that good. Now, will they use it that way? I hope not. I pray on either side doesn't, but that could very well be the case. I think people need to tone down and not act like you're so definitive about what you saw and what is going on, because you really don't know everything. Does that make sense?
Okay, so it does. There's a lot to unpack there, and I'm going to try and go kind of beat by beat. The first is um, closed borders, and what is immigration? And you are here because of immigrants, and
I'm
thus
only
I
second
am as
generation
well.
American.
Right. So obviously you're pro immigration.
Definitely, definitely, yes.
So yeah, okay. And so then the other thing that I wanted to unpack is you used bad people. And fundamentally as a Christian, I believe that you know that people can be good but then are also swayed, would you say?
Well, I mean, if
Or
you're
do you
asking
think
me,
people are inherently bad?
I all have sinned and fallen short of the glory. All have sinned. So inherently we're bad. Inherently we're bad.
Right.
Now, having said that, it's bad in the eyes of God. It's a sinful nature. That's what that means. Does it mean that all people treat their fellow human beings terrible? No. But in God's eyes, we were all sinners. That's the
Okay,
Christian
so
definition.
right, and you're leading me right into kind of where I want to go with unpacking all of these things. First and foremost, what what gives us our lens? What gives us our perspective? Where did your faith come from? And when did your faith evolve from what you believed growing up? And
Right.
how did community impact that?
Oh yeah, no, that's really important because my faith came from my mom and dad, your grandma and
Mm,
grandpa, which you were very close to my mom and dad, as probably as close as I was. So some of that impacted you in the same way. But yeah, definitely when I was young, my parents, instilled in me certain values and certain things. They made me go to church every week. They made me go to catechism every Saturday morning, which I hated, but they made me go. And those things stuck with me. And I think that growing up in this community also instilled certain values. We were, as you know, what Florence is like. Florence is predominantly, or was predominantly, Italian and Hispanic, more so than probably anything, and a lot of white people. I'm Italian, you know, um, and we had culture, we had good culture, and we had good communication, and it was just, I guess it was innocent. When I thought of it today, I thought of how innocent it was in my childhood, growing up in a small town, and you know, like you said, what what did it do going to Southern California? Just not to get way ahead of us, but what did it do? I didn't realize how innocent we are and how uninnocent the world is. Okay, for
hmm
a long time, and that I think that
Okay.
it's like, I mean, for lack of a better word, culture shock. Okay, culture
Right.
shock.
And we kind of touched on that in our first episode. And so
Right.
uh just staying along those lines. So faith, socioeconomic and cultural imprints helped define and shape your perspective.
Sure it did. Sure
Okay.
it did.
And so could you also argue, or maybe we don't have to argue this episode. Would you agree that those certain perspectives also shape how we form and receive factual information,
Probably so. Yeah. Anything that happens
right?
to you in that in your informative years shapes that. Yeah, of course.
And so then going further on that line, then because and how you kind of started this episode talking about how I'm fed certain things and you're fed certain things. So I think algorithms play a huge part in going all the way back to Walter Cronkite. Walter Cronkite's algorithm was the United States, and and so he was talking to the nation, right?
Right.
There were three networks. You had three options for your news, and so for people like me and you,
And the newspaper, I should say,
who
newspapers were huge too
right,
back then. Right.
the Associated Press has, yeah, right.
Yeah.
So but for people like us who had a mom and a dad who instilled certain core values based probably, if not entirely, on faith or religious based ideology that
I'll
like
agree with that.
led into, yeah, and all of these things in our community and culture, the people we interacted with, the reactions that they gave based on how we respond or how we communicate, all of these things informed all the things that we feel. And so we took in, or I didn't because I wasn't alive, but you took in the news from Walter, and I definitely took in the news from, Peter Jennings and things like Walter Cronkite when I was
Right.
in primary and middle school and things like that. We took that as fact and we accepted it as truth because we probably came from the same kind of background as the men, mostly at that time. Barbara Walters, I think, was the first that actually got to sit at a prime time, yeah, nightly news anchor. Uh, the men were reporting; they were all white men, and so I'm wondering if you
Did we trust
see
them?
that might go ahead.
Well, I'm just thinking. I was thinking. You prompted me to think about if I ever heard something and doubted it. Like I do now. I don't think I did. I think, and I'm sure that there was political concerns going on back then because I mean, let's face it, we had political concerns going back to the very beginning of our country that politics played a part in it. But I don't
Well,
know.
I'm wondering, like, go ahead.
Well, I don't know if their integrity allowed them to lie to us about something, or if they tried to, push it that way. It made me think of something, and I'll take just a side note because you'll get a kick out of this.
Okay.
In 1968, we landed on the moon.
Yes.
Right? I think it
Okay.
was 68.
Allegedly.
I think it was June of
Allegedly.
68. Oh, and that's where I'm going with this.
Allegedly.
Because I'm sitting in my grandpa Schaefer, your great grandpa Schaefer's living room, and there's me and my dad and my grandpa. And grandpa's sitting there and we're watching the moon landing, Apollo 11, I think it was, that actually landed. Neil Armstrong, I
Okay.
think it was 11. Forgive my memory. Um,
I thought it was Apollo
anyways,
13. No? Anyway.
no, Apollo 13 was the bad one. Uh, but
Hmm.
anyways, whatever Apollo it was Neil Armstrong. And I'll never forget, as long as I live, that Grandpa Schaefer, who was born in 1890, I think, somewhere around
Hmm.
1889, 1890, he turns to my dad because, and I'm there too, and he goes, they're not on the moon. They're someplace in Arizona. This was my grandpa. This was my grandpa. My coal mining, hardworking, grew up with no car. They had horses and carriages until he came to the United States. He probably didn't
Immigrant.
have a car. Very much immigrants in a poor place in Croatia. And he goes, and now I think about that, and he actually thought, my grandpa actually thought that those people on that TV were lying to him way back in 1968. And I thought, man,
And what's so interesting is, and that was before you had algorithms and you had different people
yeah,
feeding you different things, but there were still, two sides of a coin even back then in the political arena. And we were also in a space race with Russia and a communist, dictator kind of circumstance. And so of course the United States had to be there first and be the
and
best. And
remember, I'm sorry, go ahead.
no, no,
I
no,
remember
go
your
ahead.
grandpa Schaefer fled communism. Your grandpa Schaefer and and
Yes.
and they knew what was coming down. They left right before World War One when Austria-Hungary got broke into Yugoslavia. Then Tito took over. World War Two. All that stuff was going on, and they had the wherewithal to get out. And my grandma came much later, almost
Right.
12 years later.
And so okay, and we might circle back to that, but I want to stay on point and
Okay.
the idea of, and obviously they made a movie, Wag the Dog, and and the whole QAnon conspiracy of that we didn't land on the moon. And you know what? I believe we landed on the moon because I want to believe these three American heroes, but I will also leave space for the fact that Hollywood does crazy things, and so does Washington D.C. And maybe
Well,
we didn't land on the moon.
well, and that
And I don't want to get a ton of hate mail, and I don't. I'm not crazy. I'm just saying I'm trying to evolve, and if we are going to be open minded, then we have to remain open to the idea that we could have been lied to back then. Just like I feel like sometimes we're being lied to right now.
well, I think we're being lied to a lot more back now, and I'm not saying it couldn't have happened.
Right, but
But
we
what I
think
am saying,
we're both feeling like we're being lied to on different sides.
I'm right. Oh yeah, definitely. But what I am saying, and what's really funny about that whole episode with my grandpa, it wasn't too long after that that I'm standing in Safeway with my mom, and I look up and see a rag, what we used to call rag newspapers, like I won't even say the
The
names, but you know what I'm
Inquirer.
talking about, a
Yeah.
tabloid, and it
Yeah.
says NASA lied, we didn't really land on the moon. Now that that back then was something that people laughed at. They laughed at that newspaper. And if you remember and you love movies, so you will remember this, but the Men in Black, you remember the Men in Black, that first
Of
episode with
course.
Men in Black, he goes, oh, we got to go get the newspaper. And he pulls out the Esquire and he reads, or in, whatever it's called, Inquire. I'm sorry,
Yeah.
Inquire. And he pulls
Inquiring
out and
minds
reads it.
want to know.
Yes. So, I mean, yeah, so it crept into it way back in the 60s, which was over 50 years ago now. You know, I was probably 8 years old. Well, I was 11 years old, I guess, when they landed on the moon. So, yeah, long
Okay,
time
good.
ago.
So I love hearing that story, and I remember my grandpa, your dad, Grandpa Schaefer, used to always speculate that we didn't land on the moon, but he was doing it tongue in cheek with a wink. You know, he
You know, he
I don't
believed we
think
did.
believed the same.
Yeah. Yeah, because, you know,
Yes.
he told me don't listen to your grandpa. He said don't listen to your grandpa.
Yeah, of course.
He drank too much
Which
wine
is
today or something like that. I don't remember.
sage advice. Okay, so on this point, now I want to reverse and try to see it from a different perspective. And I wasn't there for this, but you did watch, and you brought up the Selma march, and you did watch that. Okay, and it was reported, and I think, and
And
I've
Georgia.
obviously seen a lot of, I've seen a lot of clips and things like this, but um, it, I wonder what it felt like to be watching as a person of color then, with these three white anchors reporting on this civil march or the civil rights movement. I mean, we don't know, obviously, but
We,
I wonder.
I wonder too. I don't know. I have no idea what that would have felt like. I have no idea. Yeah,
And
I don't even think we could, and it wouldn't be fair to speculate. I'm sure there was a lot of fear. I'm sure there was tons of fear. And I agree with that. There was probably tons of fear, and rightfully so. There was some bad crap happening, man, and it
and
wasn't
I
good.
think it's mirroring exactly what's happening. And I'm not comparing, please, you
Yeah,
and our
yeah.
listening audience. I'm not comparing uh, Dr. King's and the civil rights movement that happened then to what is happening now in any way, shape, or form, aside from the fact that from through the lens of me being a middle-aged white person watching on television, I'm concerned for my friends who are in the BIPOC community because I'm sure they're afraid. How could they not be afraid right now? And I'm not talking about illegal immigrants that are here or you know, I'm talking about everyday American citizens who were born and raised here. Their parents were born and raised here. Their grandparents were born and raised here. And because of the difference of the socioeconomic or the whatever, the cultural or just the fact that of their lineage, where they came from, their family might trace back to slavery. They live with a fear that we don't live with.
I couldn't argue against that. I think that right now what we're seeing, and as you know, my wife Louise is Hispanic. Her whole family is Hispanic. She's very much Native American. She's very much into that culture. Matter of fact, she belongs to a genealogy society of New Mexico that explores that culture immensely, greatly, and so she's there. And what I'm thinking, what I'm seeing today, this last week. And again, this goes back to me seeing what my algorithms are letting me see, and you seeing what your algorithms letting you see. Because what I'm seeing right now, I would say that Hispanic and Black people have way more common
Latin,
sense,
Latin. All
have
okay.
have way more common sense than middle aged white America right now. That's what I would say.
And,
Now,
elaborate on that for a minute.
well, I mean, as we talked, I mean, do they have fears of certain things happening to them? Yes, but you don't. You rarely. What I see in my reels I'm looking at, which again could be wrong, but what I'm seeing is there's not. You don't see the black population or the Hispanic population out in force, which I've seen them out in force,
The
Matt.
Latin, because it's not okay.
Right? You
Yes.
see what I'm
Okay.
saying? And plus, I think they're.
No, but
I don't
no.
know if it's
Okay. So
fear
hold
driven or
on.
if they're just smarter than us or the
Okay,
people that's
that's
doing
what I
that.
was going to ask you. Uh, Do you think, based on the conversation that we had leading into this, I would imagine it's fear driven. I mean, they're relying on white advocacy.
I don't know. I think they're smarter than us. I think that um, number one, they love
Okay.
America. You know, my wife's family came from Mexico to New Mexico, and they love America. They love America, and
Well,
and
okay. What I hear in that is that the white, you said white women are advocating that then they don't love America.
I think some of them don't love America. Unfortunately, I think some of them don't love America anymore.
Why do you say what? And what gives you that context or that
Just
rationality?
conversations I've had with members of the family that are, you know, that are not of ethnic background, you know,
That are not what you broke
I
up.
could be dead wrong. Like I said, I could be dead wrong. It just feels to me.
Wait, repeat what you said because you broke up.
Sorry,
Your the connection.
no, I just conversations I've had with other people. As you know, on the Schaefer side, there's lots of Yugoslavians, Croatians, and predominantly they're white. That's what they are, you know. And then I've got the Italian mixed in with that. So, but just conversations I've had with them, and just in general, watching all these reels and stuff, I just think to me, I'm still thankful that we're in America. I'm still thankful for America. You know, I still think it's the greatest country on earth. Has it got a lot of problems? Yeah, it does. And right now, it's really got some problems. But I mean,
Well,
hopefully,
okay,
hopefully we can get
yeah.
through that.
Well, that's something I'm gonna kind of let's uncover that because when I hear you say I'm thankful for America, I am too. And this was something I'll go all the way back to Colin Kaepernick. When he took a knee, I was like, he's doing it so respectfully, and he's trying to make a statement that black men and women are treated with a different regard than white men and women. And the pushback that he received for taking a knee, it was so interesting to me because it automatically put anyone that agreed with Colin's stance anti-American or un-American or anti-democratic or you don't. And for me, that was entirely the point of democracy is that you can exert your First Amendment right to kneel in
And he
protest
did.
against things that yeah, and he did. You're
And,
right, but he suffered immensely because of it. He lost all of
well,
his his career.
right. Oh yeah, no, and I was against it too, as you know. But let me tell you something about the First Amendment right. Although
Okay.
you have the First Amendment right, and I have the First Amendment right, now he didn't get thrown in jail at all. He didn't get arrested. He has the right to do that. But just because you
Right.
have that right to do that doesn't mean I have to like it.
I
Right?
don't
Let me,
disagree with you. But
so,
but then why does it go so far as being labeled anti-American?
well, the people who didn't like it labeled it that. So that's all part of that
Yeah.
free speech thing, you know. I can sit there and say, I think that's anti-American. I think a lot of
Is it
when I talk to my, as you know, I'm well involved with the veteran community, and when I talk to my veteran friends, their take on that. And I have as you know, very close friends that I ride motorcycles with that are veterans, and their take on that was, don't disrespect the flag that my fellow veterans came home under that flag. Don't disrespect it like that. I don't. We have the right to, and getting a little off topic, but we have the right to burn the American flag, and I don't like that at all. I think we shouldn't do that. I think that's wrong. And
But
and
okay, I
and
don't
I
want to
would
get
call
off
it
topic.
anti-American.
Hold on. Okay,
But you still
but
have the right to do it.
okay, so
You see what I
I
mean?
don't disagree with. Hold on. I I don't disagree with the fact that if you exert your First Amendment right, it comes with consequences. You might lose your job. That you're not
Right.
protected under the First Amendment to maintain a job. So if
Right.
you're going to speak out and speak up against something, know that you're putting yourself at jeopardy, which he did obviously, and he lost his job. He lost endorsements. He lost a lot, a lot. The problem that I have, I agree with you. I agree. First Amendment, you say what you want, but there will be repercussions. And everyone who has gone and done something as big and important as Colin Kaepernick or anyone else in between, they've suffered and but they did it because they believe in a country where everyone should have an equitable stake at something. And he is one of a larger voice of people who for a long time haven't had a seat at the table in their from their point of view. And so if this is a democratic republic, and if we all here in this country that are here as either natural born citizens or who have immigrated here legally have this right to this First Amendment, why is it that me saying something that counters your socioeconomic, culturally faith-based upbringing, why does that make it un-American?
I think, like I said, it makes it un-American in that person's eyes. Now, does that
The person that's
define?
calling them un-American.
Yeah, exactly. Again, it's all subjective, a subjective view. I mean,
Right.
and we always fall back to majority rules in this country. It seems like, but that's not always necessarily true. That's a lot of times not necessarily right, but still, in his case, just specifically his case, more people came out and
Mhm.
said it was un-American. Does it mean that that defines what un-American is? No, it doesn't. It means those people think it was, and they have every right to think that way. As long as it doesn't cross over the line and they take another right from him, like impede him from doing his First Amendment right, or impede him, or try to uh, harm him
Well,
bodily, or send him threats, or do anything to that sort. To that
the
sort,
NFL
then
did
it's
kind of
wrong.
try and do that to him.
That
Would
well,
you
some people
don't
did,
you
and they
think
got
the
in
NFL?
trouble.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Okay.
You
Good.
know, you know what I'm
Okay.
saying?
So yeah, no, I do. And okay. So I guess okay. I'm leading up to some things, but I have a few more thoughts and things I wanted to kind of pick your brain about. When do
Of
you
course
think
you do.
society
Of
stopped
course you do.
listening? Why are you laughing?
Because you like picking my brain, and there's not a lot left over to
Well,
pick. So be careful.
well, I hope I appreciate well, because part of me picking your brain or asking you these questions helps inform why I think the way that I think. And it's interesting because I really have sat with this for the last 2 weeks of a lot of my notions and a lot of my outlook and a lot of my assertion and opinion and defiance is based on everything that you and mom and grandmas and grandpas and my church and Boy Scouts and dance and has like taught me, but then also then the lived experience of realizing that a lot of that stuff that I believed that I was taught, I disagree with.
Right,
And
and
so I
that's
guess
okay.
I'll ask you, yeah. Well, thank you for giving me permission to
It's
disagree
okay.
with
I
you.
mean, you think
No.
here's one thing that needs to be said right now. It really does need to be said
Okay.
because I didn't agree with grandma and grandpa, your mom and dad, all the time at all, and we had some very
My
heated
mom and dad.
discussions.
You're my mom and dad. You mean your mom and dad?
My mom and dad, your grandma and grandpa. I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
Yeah,
I didn't
that's
agree
right.
with them all the time, and we had some very heated discussions. I just,
I sat
I've
through them. I
noticed,
remember.
yeah, exactly. So, and about stupid stuff sometimes, but still, we did. But I just feel, and maybe I'm dead wrong about this, but this is how I feel, that the the chasm between me and my dad is less than the chasm between me and you, and that generational chasm. I think that chasm. Am I saying it right? You're
I think
the
it's chasm.
okay.
I
We'll go with
honestly
that.
don't know. I think it's chasm.
Okay, right, but you're the
It doesn't matter.
you got the English lit stuff. I don't.
It
But anyways, I think that that's the case, and I could be wrong. Maybe that's not true. Maybe, but I think me and my dad's generation were much closer than me and your generation is in general. I'm not saying me and
do
you
you
aren't
think
close. You see what I mean? In
yeah, do you
like-minded
think that
thought
that
and stuff.
I
Maybe.
don't want to cut you off because I know your friends accuse me of cutting you off, but sometimes I think you're done with something and then you're not.
No,
Do you
no,
think
I'm
that
sorry, but my thoughts come so sporadic sometimes. Go ahead. You didn't
yes,
cut me off,
that's
sorry.
okay. Do you think that that has to do with a shift in faith? Do you think that that has to do with the onset of advanced technology, a technological revolution that happened so fast that we went from me being wrapped in a cordless phone when I was a toddler and playing on a black and white screen with an Atari to having devices in our hands, or is it both, or
No,
something
no, that could
else?
be a big part of it because that jump didn't occur so much in my lifetime between me and my dad. Yeah,
Right.
there were some things that happened, major things that happened. But my dad had a car. They had cars. You know, when he was in 1952 in high school, he had a car. He was cruising Maine. You know, they didn't have computers. You know, Matt, when I graduated from high school, we didn't have calculators. I got my
No,
first
I know.
calculator in my first year in college. A calculator, a
It was
Texas Instrument calculator. You know, so yeah,
yes.
that could definitely be. It could technology could have played a big part in it, but I don't know what. Well, if you remember right, we ate spaghetti dinner at your grandma's every Sunday, or my grandma's until she passed away. Then it went to your grandma's when we were living here, and we were always there eating spaghetti dinner. It was the greatest thing. We talked, all of us talked, we argued. Oh God, sometimes we argued about the stupidest thing, but still,
Yeah.
that happened every Sunday. And now, me and you don't. You're where you're at. I'm where I'm at. We don't have Sunday dinners. You know,
No.
um,
Yes.
families are split.
And
Families are way more split apart. There's the divorce rate in my generation was, I don't even know how many times higher than the divorce rate in my mom and dad's generation. You see what I mean? So the splintering of the family started a little bit right then too, right? That affected you and affected me. And maybe that's how that happened. I don't know. I can't answer that. It just seems that chasm, whatever, is greater between my generation and your generation and my generation and my dad's generation. That's just how I feel. I don't know if
and
it's true or not.
okay, and so you brought up the Sunday dinner, and I agree. I remember arguments, but also really wonderful conversations, and a
Yeah.
lot of time spent with my grandparents at Sunday dinners. And I think now, and this is the perfect segue, so thank you. I think now people are still gathering and still having communion, but they're doing it in such small, like-minded pods that if it isn't exactly what they believe or want to hear, it feels like then maybe you're not a part of that pod or community. And so I'm wondering, and that also plays into the algorithm, and that also plays into perhaps why even my friends that listen to this podcast felt like I was too lenient, or I because at the end of the day, I think we've gone so far from trying to find common ground to trying to
Divide.
yes, I think there are people, I think leadership, I think the political arena, and I think corporate America is trying to divide. I do. But I don't think the average American citizen. I tell you this all the time. I travel for work. I'm fortunate that I get to work on the road across this country and in Europe, and I observe. I'm an observer, and I watch at the airports, and every now and then, at least once a month, I'll strike up a conversation with someone. Usually, they're much older than I am. A lot of times, they're younger. Never really my age. Usually I'm talking to someone a little older, like someone that might be like a grandparent to me, or someone who's like in college right now. And we'll just start conversation. And 9 out of 10 times, even if they're on the complete opposite ideology when it comes to either faith or politics or whatever, they're open to a conversation one on one. It's when we get into our little factions of yeah, factions of you know community that we kind of think the same, but but I don't agree with that person, so I'm gonna stay over here and I'm gonna kind of challenge them because they're kind of hurting this cause for us over. It's become so calculated rather
Splinter.
than
It's become splintered.
splintered. Yeah,
Splintered.
and so I'm
Our society
wondering,
is splintered.
I'm wondering if you think that how you support or show support, whether it's in at the ballot box or in where you lend your money, to which organizations and politicians. I wonder if that is helping or hurting democracy.
Well, I think the fact that there is separate parties for political reasons is good. I really
Okay.
do. I didn't ever think the ideologies would be so far apart. And I don't think they were in the '60s. When I look at some of the stuff that was happening in the '60s, I don't think that the ideologies were so far apart. Um, I think they were still
In what
apart.
way?
Well, in just what if you want to use the term left and right, Democrat, Republican, whatever you want to use. I don't think I think that chasm has done the same thing generationally, right, with politics as it did
Right.
to our families and to mine and your generation. That might be part of the whole problem is we've grown way farther apart in the last generation than we did from my dad's generation, from the baby boomers to the
Okay, but the why is what I'm looking for. So why do you think, why is it that the your party, I'll call it your party, it's not your party, it's the American People's Party, obviously, the conservative party, the party you are a member of, it feels like they, if it's not going to be the way they want America to be, then it's not the America that it was. And so therefore it's bad. My party, if we want to call it my party, the left, it feels like everyone in your party is wrong and evil and the devil, and we don't want your America anymore. And what I glean from that is that that's going to leave our democratic republic in shambles, and it will
I
be
agree.
another failed attempt at democracy.
I agree. I agree.
And
Yeah.
so what are we going to do about it? How? Like how can we, how,
Well,
if you are so far on the other side of something, can we fix it?
we're doing it right now. I mean, we've got to tone down all the rhetoric on both sides. We have to tone it down. We have to talk to people like they're people, you know, and we have to present ideas that would help, you know, each other and help the human race. Not because you know my beliefs, Matt. There's only one race. There's only one race. That's how I was taught. It's the human race. And for the there can be cultures and all this other stuff going on, but there's only one race. And we've got to start embracing that concept and thinking about it. That hey, man, it's sure not. Even though we disagree on a lot of stuff, we better find some common ground and we better do it
But
quick
okay,
because
and Dad, you and I agree wholeheartedly on this, and this is what is our probably our strongest thread that keeps us like woven together is that we both agree that we have to convince people to start coming together. However, I don't think that either of our leadership on either side is on the same page as you and me, and or you and I are, and I am concerned that rather than calling these people out, we're both sides are just doubling down on getting behind the anger and the hate of the opposition.
that's what it appears like right now. It sure does.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I want to
and
read
it's not.
you. Go ahead.
I mean, here I go again, and I've talked to you about this before. If I
Okay.
take the biblical stance, which you brought me on this podcast because sometimes you want to hear what my biblical stance is, correct?
And this, yeah, I do. And this will lead perfectly into the quote that I'm going to read you.
Okay, so if I take the 100% biblical stance, what I read in the Bible and what I've
Uh-huh.
taught is that,
Okay.
and I don't want it to come out like we're rearranging chairs on the Titanic, deck chairs on the
And neither
Titanic.
do I, because the
But
Titanic
what,
sank.
right? But the facts are that towards the end times, and as the end times come upon us, things are going to keep getting worse and worse and worse. Are we in that? I don't know how far we're in that. I can't tell you that, but I do believe that that's going to be the case. And you and I both know we've read passages not too long ago that said father will be against son and mother will be against daughter, and if that's the case, but here's the good news. That's the bad news. The good news is you're not rearranging deck chairs on the Titanic. We're
Right.
still called as Christians, and my belief is to help one another no matter what the problem is, no matter how it
Okay.
is.
So I hear you, and I don't want to
So
get
I
back
can't
into
just
this. I
give up
want to
my
read.
arms and say, okay, it's getting worse. Okay, I don't care.
Okay, I hear. Okay, I get that.
Does that make sense?
But yeah, it does in that context. But then someone from my school of thought might turn around and be like, "Well, then how can you watch what's happening with the immigrants who are being detained and how they're being detained and even American citizens and what's happening? That kind of contradicts what you just said to me."
No, no, it doesn't. Things are getting bad. Things are getting worse, and
Okay.
and we're in a fallen world, and things are going to happen.
Okay, okay. So with the theme of you brought theology and of course that's yes, our podcast is faith discussions with dad, faith, blood, and the in between. So obviously faith is a part of our practice and our podcast. I'm going to read. Go ahead.
Hey, it doesn't mean you just go along with it and say, "Oh, we're going to hell in a handbasket," and I don't
No,
care because Jesus has
no.
got my back. That's not what he said to do. And he said to occupy until I return, which means do what you're supposed to do, what I told you to do until I return. I mean, part of my group, if you will, right conservatives want, and some left too, want to go buy 20 acres up in the mountains and build a compound and escape from all of it. Well, number one, there ain't no escape from it, right? Number two,
Right.
that isn't what he said to do. You're supposed to spread the
Well,
love.
okay. Yeah,
You see what I
and I
mean?
hear you. I want to get we're running low on time, and I do want to get some other thoughts out, and I
Okay.
hear that. Uh, I also think it's funny, just kind of going back to the very start of this conversation about the First Amendment, when all of the celebrities were jumping ship when Trump was elected back into office. I kind of thought, well, it's talk about privilege. Nothing says privilege in my mind more than a celebrity using their First Amendment right in this country to talk about how they're going to go to another country where there is no First Amendment right. So we don't hear about them. And all
Right.
of us should be doing the same thing, except we don't have the money to just pick up and sell our
Yeah.
million
I
dollar
would
mansion
like
in
to.
Montecito and move, you
Right.
know?
Right.
So,
I want to
but I
build.
don't want
I
to get,
want to
that,
build
that was just a,
Italy.
no,
I
that
want
was
to
just a
build in Italy.
speculation. Yeah, me
Yeah.
too.
Right.
Okay, so I'm going to read you a quote. This is a quote from a book called James. It's a novel by Percival Everett, who Percival Everett is a professor of English at USC, and I think he won an Oscar for his screenplay adaptation of the book that he wrote, American Fiction, which is really good, Dad. If you haven't seen the
I
movie,
haven't.
I think you would really benefit from watching it. But this book, I love this book for so many reasons. It's James is the retelling, or not the retelling, the other side of Slave Jim from The Adventures of Tom Sawyer and Huckleberry Finn. Okay, and this passage comes midway mid end of the book, and it's in reference to God and their belief in God.
And this is
And one
Jim's
of
perspective.
Yes, and
Oh,
he
okay,
goes by
cool.
James. Yeah,
Right.
it's a really important. I think I would love it if you read it, and I hope that all of the men in your generation will read it. The quote is, "It's a horrible world. White people try to tell us that everything will be just fine when we go to heaven. My question is, will they be there? If so, I might make other arrangements." Easter laugh.
That's good. That's good. I mean, that's good.
It's
There's and I don't know who said this, but it was probably like Moody or C.S. Lewis said, when we get to heaven, you're probably going to be surprised who's there and who's not there. So yeah, I mean, that could very well be the truth. Who knows? Who knows?
So the reason I picked that specific quote, it really, when I read it, the day that I read it, it popped out because it's the what the book does so incredibly well is it speaks to the unconscious ignorance of white people in general, in my opinion, but especially white America. And I'm lumping myself obviously into that grouping of you don't know until you know. And
Right.
how could I ever know what I could never know, right? But in that one sentence, which is, yes, we laugh, but also so poignant in that what was their promise and what was their strength to keep them from just giving up as a slave? And then how did generationally, how in this country did they like bounce back from that? And I think that that's what we're still, I think that that's the part of this conversation which we'll definitely have to explore, as we continue this podcast, is how do we not understand, or at least see that we will never understand what it's
Yeah.
like to
We
be
won't.
in Black America?
No, we won't. I agree with that.
Right. and
I,
and
I, I
and
agree with
that
that.
makes me, I'm grateful that you agree with that, because I'd be worried if you didn't. And I know, obviously, I know who you are. You raised me, so I know who you are. But sometimes, and I'm not saying you, Dad, but I'm saying sometimes, from my perspective, open-minded, left-leaning, liberal California artist, gay, I look and I'm like, I don't know if conservative Americans really understand how hard Black America has it sometimes. And not just Black, brown America as well, obviously. Anyone that isn't Caucasian, white in America.
Well, yeah, we won't know.
Thoughts?
We won't know that. But my concept of that, first of all, you won't get any argument from me how dumb white people are, because this last week has shown me some really stupid white people. And I'm not even
Well,
gonna. I don't even
Dad,
have to go past that. But that's one thing. Number two,
okay.
there's a lot, and you know how close I was with. I don't want to say his name, with T Dub. You
Yeah.
know how
Yeah.
good of friends we were. And that's why my perspective is a little bit different, because yeah, I grew up in small town America. I live in small town America now, but I spent 9 years in L.A. County, and I had a very, very, very good black friend, and I saw some of the garbage that took place. So I won't argue the fact that people, when him and I walked into a room, they looked at him different than they looked at me, depending on which room we walked into. Depending on which, when I was with his friends, they looked
Well,
at me a lot.
you played basketball with him, so that, I
I
mean,
did.
yeah,
I did. I played basketball with him, and we used to go every night after work. And he'd say, "Hey, I'm going to go play over here tonight. Do you want to come?" And I would go. And then sometimes he'd say, "Hey, I'm going to go play tonight, but guess what? I can't take you." I
Right.
understood exactly what he was saying. I knew exactly.
But do you think that? But do you think that? I think yes, but that would happen way more to him than you.
It would if I would have.
He would be less welcome into a room more often than you would.
It very, very, very well could be. Very well could be. And that's a sad fact, but it is a fact. But what I'm seeing now from so many people, and it might just be my algorithms, but the Hispanic population and the black population don't need me to take care of them. They that's almost Tony Wallace. Oops, I said his name. You're gonna have to edit that one out. T
I
Dub.
can't edit this.
T, T,
We're
T,
not editing. You outed your friend.
Tony, if you're out there, I love you, brother, and I'd love to hear from you. Um, and he's in Mississippi now, so I probably never see him again. But anyways,
Well, that's
yeah,
sad because that is the good aspect of social media is that you can still be friends with
I
friends.
tried. I've tried. But anyways, where
Okay.
was I going with that, Matt? What was I saying?
I don't know. You tell
Well,
me.
the fact that he never needed me to take care of him. He never needed me to get a job. He never. Matter of fact, he was probably better at some of the stuff that we did together as plumbers and foremen because we were together on the same company than I was. And he would have been offended if I would have treated him anything less than my equal because he was probably better than me at so much stuff. He was better looking, no doubt about that, you know. And
Oh,
he was.
you're opening up so many. I mean, we have 3 minutes left of this,
We
and we're
only
gonna
have
have to
three
have a
minutes left,
whole.
but I had to get that out there, Matt. I don't want to present it as like the white person needs to be a savior for other ethnic groups. They don't.
I,
That's
I
almost that's
I don't
almost
know
an
that they,
insult to
Dad.
them.
I don't know that they need to be a savior, but I definitely don't think that they need to be hunting them down for sport.
I don't think that's happening in America now. I'm
I
sorry, I don't
do.
think that's
I
happening in America now.
well,
I
so you
think
don't think the KKK still exists?
if it does, it's a faction that I mean, you know how prevalent it was in this community, and in this community, it wasn't black people they were hunting; it was Italians and Hispanics,
Okay, but
and they were all
the
over, all
idea.
over our area, all over.
Well,
Yeah,
well,
no,
and see, and this goes. I mean, there it goes into so many things, Dad, because in the deep South, the same clan members were also the local law enforcement. So the idea that black and brown people shouldn't be afraid of law enforcement, well, let's just look at that right there. And that could be a whole hour on its own, in and of its own. So I don't want to
and I
like go
think
into it too much.
we should probably have a podcast somewhere down the line about that because I
An
would like to
episode,
hear.
yeah.
I mean, I know you've got friends that feel that way, but I have friends that feel different from the same communities, you know. So, yeah, that might be something we explore. Have a guest.
Yeah. I think we should have more than one guest. I think we're going to have several guests over the course of this year because I think there are a lot of conversations that need to be had that you and I have one perspective based on very similar origins. We have faith. Faith was instilled very young. Community was instilled very young. Education and a lot of different things played into and how we were educated matters too because of what things were introduced and which things weren't introduced. And so, there's a lot to look at in that regard. I get the theme of this episode was supposed to be what we learned before we knew what we believed. Is there one
Right.
thing that you want to share with me and the listening audience that you might have learned and then you believe different now?
Yeah. So I thought about that. What I learned when I left my little cocoon of Florence, Colorado, and even just going to Fort Collins to school, but definitely when I ventured off to uh, Los Angeles and worked there for 8 years and then a year in Orange County. What I learned is the world is not as innocent as I thought it was. That's what I learned. And it's sad. That's sad to me because I grew up thinking this world was so innocent, and even though I saw things so remote, in Selma, and I saw things so remote in Kent State in Ohio, and Vietnam was going on. I was very sheltered in Florence, Colorado, very sheltered, and I always thought the best of the world, even though I knew it wasn't perfect. But when I finally learned, like you said, it says what before we knew what we believed. Well, I believe the world is not an innocent place. It's just not an innocent place, and that's the biggest thing I learned.
Let's leave it on that note, and we hopefully will continue these conversations, and we will be able to shed some hope and joy, and hopefully bring some people back together to the dinner table.
That would be great.
Yeah?
I do.
All right. I love you, Dad.
I love you too. Talk to you later.
Until next time. Okay. Have a good one. Thank you for listening.
Bye-bye.